I'm here.
Commissioner Irvin,
Present.
Commissioner Hirschbein,
Present.
Commissioner Maruzzi,
Here.
Vice Chair Roberts,
Present.
Chairwoman.
Present.
Members present, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Can I have a report on the posting of the agenda, please?
Madam Chair and Planning Commissioners, our agenda was published on Thursday, January 6th. Our meeting has been posted in accordance with state law.
Our next item is the acceptance of the agenda. I would like to move item 4A to the consent calendar and otherwise keep the same agenda. Is there any objection to that?
Yeah, I do. If I'm not mistaken, AAC, didn't the staff report indicate that AAC denied the approval of that project?
They denied it because it was 2 stories. It's been changed to 1 story with a recommendation to approve, subject to conditions
From AAC?
from staff.
Okay. So if it's denied and they changed it, shouldn't it go back to AAC?
No,
No, they modified it based on ARC's recommendations. ARC has recommended approval. It's ready to go, so it can go to consent.
So ARC already saw the revised?
they wouldn't. It wouldn't go back. It comes to us.
Oh, okay. All right.
I second your motion to move 4A to the consent calendar.
All in favor?
Aye.
You show your. I think we're all in favor. There's with no opposition. Okay, at this point, we are at public comments. This time has been set aside for members of the public to address the Planning Commission on consent calendar and other agenda items and items of general interest within the subject matter jurisdiction of the commission. Please note that the Planning Commission is prohibited from taking action on an item that is not listed on the posted agenda. 3 minutes will be allowed for each speaker. Testimony for public hearings may be offered at this time or at the time of the hearing. Members of the public who would like to comment on item 1A, 1B, 3A, 3B, 4A, and 4B are directed to comment under this portion of the agenda. Do we have members of the public who've indicated they would like to speak?
Yes, Edward Ackerman speaking.
Yes,
Actually, that question was directed to Mr. Newell, but
correct. Yeah, Madam Chair, we do have one direct request with our department to speak at the meeting. Mr. Edward Ackerman is our first speaker. Before we get into the public comments, I would just note that the city did receive 4 letters from neighbors relative to items 3A and 3B. Those items have been forwarded to the Planning Commission for consideration. But if there's anyone else who would like to speak for either those items or the items that the chair has announced, now is the appropriate time. So if you would like to speak, please indicate so by raising your hand in the reactions feature at the bottom of the screen, and or send a note to me in the chat. So our first speaker right now would be Edward Ackerman, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I guess everyone can hear me. I'm trusting that. I'm questioning 4B on the Miralon project on October 19th of 2021. I had a very small judgment that I won as a plaintiff against them. It's around $3,000. I question their ability to continue the project and be a good developer if they can't pay a $3,000 bill. And I'm a little upset that it's taken this long, and I'm sorry I'm belaboring planning, but you have to know what kind of people you're dealing with. And this is all evolving around a fugitive sand issue from 2018. And finally, with COVID, I finally got a court date, and the court on October 19th of this year ruled in my favor, and I haven't received the funds from Miralon, so I question.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Robert Sparrow.
Hi, I'm not sure. I guess you can hear me. I think our camera has been muted. Yeah, let's start.
We can hear you.
Okay, great. We may be late to the table. You know, we got the information that the property behind us on West Chino Canyon was up for consideration, the plans, and we got the new plans recently, which took the structure from a 2-story to 1, and we weren't aware that it would be moving toward consent or approval. So I guess we are late to the party. Accurate?
Okay.
So, yeah, so that item has been moved to consent, but if you have any other comments that you would like the commission to consider, now would be the appropriate time.
I think we were pleased to see that. We were out of the country for a few months in Ireland, got back and got all the correspondence, and we were happy to see that the structure had been moved from a 2-story to a 1. We've been living down here for about 7 years. We've had the property to the west of them, I believe, and we were happy to see it move to a 1-story structure. We know very little about the code and limitations here, but we're at least happy to see that. And we were sitting in today to just become, you know, a little more informed about the project itself. But if it's moved to consent, does that mean plans have been approved and they're moving on to the next stage?
So this is generally not the time where we do interactive or respond to questions, but once public comment's over, I can address your question.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Sorry.
Okay, no problem.
Thanks.
All right, the next speaker is Joseph Burke.
Good evening, I'm Joseph Burke, owner of 333 West Crestview Drive. This is on 3A and 3B. Put my video on here for you. There we go. I live directly across the street from the 2 proposed houses to be built on 2 of the 5 lots owned by the developer. These lots were never offered individually for sale, but sold only as of the 5 together, as I learned when I inquired about buying one back in 2013. I just read a recent architectural advisory minutes concerning a proposed house in Little Tuscany, located at 2100 Tuscan Road. This is a house of 2,500 square feet to be built on a hillside lot of 22,000 square feet without any setback variances. There was a unanimous, enthusiastic recommendation from the architectural committee on this proposal, with Chairman Jakeway calling it, and I quote, an instant classic. Other commissioners called it a beautiful house with wonderful scale and a wonderful home. Alas, no one will be calling the proposed houses at 310 and 322 Crestview instant classics. After 2 denials by architecture, the committee seemed to want to get this matter off their plate and kick the can down the road to planning. This happened only after Mr. Jakeway, a firm opponent of the designs put forward by the developer, had to recuse himself at the last final architectural meeting due to a business conflict. His description of the proposed houses characterized them as being, quote, mismatch of the home design with the site conditions, unquote. Nothing has been done to correct the obvious incompatibility since. Located on a dead-end street in a quiet neighborhood, these 2 houses offer no, quote, harmonious relationship with existing developments. The Mesa has an extremely varied architectural style. Crestview is no different. These houses are both, proposed houses are both too similar to each other and too large to blend in, or in lieu of that, offer an interesting and imaginative addition to our neighborhood. I remain deeply troubled by the misinformation and misrepresentations by the developer as exhibited, but not limited to, the false placement of the houses in his latest renderings, where the house boundaries do not come close to aligning with the story poles. It should be no surprise by now that the renderings show the houses with much less mass. Please take the time to study the letter to the Planning Commission submitted today by the neighborhood, signed by 21 neighbors, which details a lot of our complaints. I believe the neighborhood deserves better from this builder and his architect. The proposed first 2 houses of 5 will be built on the last large undeveloped parcel in the Mesa. We have an opportunity and an obligation, I feel, to get this right. Give us instant classics, using the site appropriately, and build to complement and add to our diversity. The neighbors would welcome a chance to work with the developer on future construction on these lots, and we have not yet been afforded that opportunity. I remain strongly opposed to this project as submitted and urge the committee, at the very least, to send it back to the Architectural Review Committee for a proper representation of the size and density, and to rethink the placement on the lots, adhering to the topography of the lots. And I thank you very much for your time this evening.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Bill Geary.
Hello.
We can hear you.
Yeah. My family is a recent purchaser and owner of 320 West El Camino Way, which is right near the 3A, 3B Crestview lots. A neighbor of ours, Jim Dunn, stopped by the other day, and I guess we're kind of new to the area, so we were uninformed as to what was going on. And he's bringing us up to speed, and we've looked at least some of the stuff. But just within the last 2 days, this week is all we've had to look at it. So would ask the commission whether or not we could have a little more time before they act on the 3A, 3B. I just noticed it's 73 pages of information on 3A and 76 pages on 3B. So we would appreciate a little time. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker we have is Neil. And Neil, if you could say your name for the record, please.
Hi there, it's Neil Mclennan. I'm a signatory to the letter that's been referenced. This is with respect to 3A, 3B, and I won't take long. I just have a discrete point that I wanted to at least raise and have on the record, and it concerns what will broadly be considered the environmental impact of these houses. I don't know what it is. I don't know if there will be anyone, but I do think it's something that should be before the commission and at least be reviewed and decided whether or not that is an aspect that has been satisfied or should be satisfied. This is a discretionary project. This is undertaken by a third party, a developer in this case. You're the permitting agency of record, and I think it's appropriate that you consider that these 5 lots being developed by a developer should undergo at least a certain level of scrutiny with respect to hydrology, considering that this cantilever is into a wash, and wildlife as well with respect to this being in a relatively active wildlife area. I appreciate that everybody who's building their dream house, say in Sunrise, should not have to go through an onerous environmental review or even a light environmental review. But this is the oldest neighborhood in the entire city. This is one of the few neighborhoods that goes up the mountain. It's one of the wildest neighborhoods in the entire city. And it's one that the vast majority of houses would have been constructed well predating any enacting of California's environmental laws. And the ones that were developed after that have been, I think you've been there, you know the neighborhood decades before we have our current environmental sensitivities as how we do things. So again, I don't say that it's insensitive. I don't say the hydrology report. I don't say this is going to be dangerous. I don't know if these 2 houses and then 2 later are going to be a problem, but I do think it's something that a developer would want to frankly do at this stage to avoid any future challenges. And if those environmental assessments are done and everything's good, that's an issue that's checked off for me in favor of this. There's obviously other issues and I've signed the letter, but I just wanted to raise that for the record. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker we have is Jay Dunn. And if you could just state your name for the record, please.
Hi, this is Jim Dunn and I live on Ridge Road. I just wanted to make a couple of comments. First of all, I wanted to express appreciation to Noriko and to the developer. And by the way, this is on 3 and 3B also, for coming out and doing a walkthrough on the story poles. I appreciate that you, as the commission, required that at the last meeting. It was helpful, I think, for us to get an understanding of the footprint of the project. And I would look at making these types of walkthroughs a standard practice going forward. I think it creates an opportunity for the developer and the neighbors to speak, because this was really the first time that happened. Moving on, I think I have a better understanding conceptually of the project, but I can't support it at this point because the renderings to me are still unclear. They don't appear to match up with the story poles, so we'd like to see that addressed. Also, there are conditions that are outstanding that were left over from ARC, such as landscaping, and now the piers, I noticed in the staff report, are conditioned to go back to piers when ARC actually had kind of moved away from piers and into the supporting wall structures. The neighbors did bring up a point today about kind of a hardening of the structures against homeless encampments and such things, because there is some activity that takes place in that canyon. So the different construction could potentially affect that in a positive way. So I think what we're looking at is we would like to see the renderings for both options, if that's still going to be a discussion item. But in general, I think the approvals need to come after the conditions are met rather than approving and then putting conditions out there. The landscaping has already been out there from ARC and it's still out there. And just lastly, I think I would like if there could be an update on the hydrology discussion from the last meeting. That was something that was raised as somewhat serious, and walking the site today, it was still a little bit unresolved as to where the status of that lay. So those conclude my comments, and I appreciate the time today. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Now would be the time to unmute yourself if you aren't able to use the raise hand feature.
Hello. Can you hear me? This is Lucian Wolf.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't see where I need to raise my hand. I just want to state that yes. Hi, I'm Lucian Wolf, and I live on the top of Ridge Road. May I speak?
Yes.
Okay. The previous owner of the Sonny Boner house, Al Franken, was wanting to buy these lots, and he was scared away by the city because of the hydrology. When we have serious rains, a lot of the water flows through 310 Crestview and goes down into El Camino. And I don't see any address to the hydrology and the water that flows down Crestview. And I'd love to see what they're going to do with dealing with the water. They're going to be allowed to go down Crestview and all the other houses deal with it, or are they going to create a little wash or something that connects it from Crestview down to El Camino? That's it. Hello?
Thank
Yes.
you.
That's my comment for now, and I agree with Dunn on everything that he's written. It's a very comprehensive letter that is sent to the city. Thank you.
Thank you. This is the last opportunity to speak. If anyone wishes to speak, please unmute your microphone.
I believe Mr. Dunn had his hand up earlier. Has he spoken?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. The public hearing is closed. For the person who asked the question, as we're going to the consent calendar, if item 4A is approved on consent, it will be approved. And we are moving to the consent calendar. We have the approval of the minutes from the regular meeting of December 8, 2021. I don't believe anyone needs to recuse themselves on that. We have the study session meetings from February 24th, 2021 and January 13th, 2021. And I would believe Commissioner Roberts and Commissioner Alain need to recuse themselves. And I believe Commissioner Irvin was excused on one of those. So can we note that as we go to the consent calendar? So we've got those items. And then we have the request for a general plan conformity finding for the vacation of a portion of the public right-of-way of Gran Via Vellamonte, located between Indian Canyon Drive and Via Chica in Section 11, Township 4, Range 4 East. And then we have item 4A, which is O2 Architecture on behalf of Michael Flannery for a major architectural application to construct a 5,600 square foot single-family residence with the maximum building height of 16.3 feet on a 31,363 square foot hillside parcel located at 775 West Chino Road. I would take a motion to approve.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Do you need a roll call, please? Can you do a roll call, please?
Vice Chair Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Maruzzi,
Yes.
Commissioner Alain,
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin,
Yes.
Commissioner Hirschbein,
Yes.
and Chair Warman.
Yes.
That's 6-0.
That's been approved unanimously. The next item is item 2A. These are items of public hearing where the public may testify. 2A is Anna Escalante on behalf of Donald Kick for an extension of time for a major architectural approval for the construction of a new 2,531 square foot single-family residence on a 22,328 square foot undeveloped hillside parcel. A short staff report, please.
Chair, unless anybody objects, can we just move to a vote on this? This is an extension of a previously approved project. That's all it is.
I would, accept this as a public hearing item. I do believe we have to open the public hearing.
Okay.
So I'm asking that we go very quickly on this. This appears to be one of the solidest reasons that I have seen for an extension request.
Madam Chair, do you need a staff report?
I don't.
Okay.
I'm going to open the public hearing. Is there any member of the public who wishes to speak? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and I will take a motion for approval.
So moved.
Do I have a
I'd
second? Can you call the roll, please?
Vice Chair Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Maruzi,
Yes.
Commissioner Land,
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin,
Yes.
Commissioner Hirschbein,
Yes.
and Chairwoman.
Yes. Item 2B is the City of Palm Springs for a zone text amendment to amend Chapter 94.05 of the zoning code to allow residential densities on properties that have historically been permitted on hotel or commercial sites. The recommendation is to continue this to a date certain of February 9th, 2020. Can I take a motion to continue, please?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Land,
Yes.
Vice Chair Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin,
Yes.
Commissioner Hirschbein,
Yes.
Commissioner Maruzi,
Yes.
and Chairwoman.
Yes.
3-0.
Okay, the next item is unfinished business, and we have item 3A on behalf of Carmelita Properties Limited for a major architectural and administrative minor modification applications to construct a 3,465 square foot single-family residence on a 15,173 square foot hillside parcel located at 710 West Crestview Drive. We have, I think what we probably want on this, there is no public hearing on this. We have heard comments. If staff has comments and things to add, to bring to us, you may want to do some pictures of the story poles.
Sure. Sorry. Yes. May I open my PowerPoint presentation, which includes all the pictures of the renderings?
Yes, please.
Okay. Thank you.
And Madam Chair, I'd also like to ask quickly if these polls have been certified.
The certification of the poll, I believe not.
These have not been certified?
Well, staff visited the site and confirmed the installation of the story pole, but certification information, the staff did not receive anything relates to that.
So has anybody checked the accuracy of these polls? Has the city checked accuracy?
Well, city conducted a site visit. We do not have any tool or any device to confirm the accuracy numerically, but.
So Noriko, typically something like this would be certified. An architect would certify these polls, that they are accurate to the plans.
Okay. Well, the applicant, the team does have an architect, so I'm gonna let the architect do.
We hired a licensed surveyor from Faux Motor Engineering to go out there and set these stakes, and we erected the poles according to that data. We can get a letter of certification from them if you'd like.
Yes, Chair, I can't move forward with these polls until we know that they're certified by somebody.
I think, actually, I agree with you, and that will be the case for item 3B as well.
Yes.
I would make a motion that we continue this to a date certain, which is our next meeting, and require certification.
Can I ask also that the renderings be modified to reflect the story pole locations? I first asked Planner Kikuchi about a certain rendering that indicated that the furthest west property was behind the adjacent house, and the pole was way out down below the house. And instead of modifying the rendering, they just cut out the adjacent house. I'd really like to see it in relation to the adjacent
That's not
house.
true. That's not
kind
true.
of the point.
Excuse me, you're not a member of this commission and not speaking. You
Well,
have not been recognized.
I'd like to see accurate renderings as it relates to that adjacent house, because right now the pole is significantly north.
If staff would take down your PowerPoint at this point.
Sure.
And this is before the commission. We have a motion and a second.
Can I just finish?
No, hold on. You've asked for some additional information, which is that the renderings match the location of the story poles.
Right.
I'm asking for discussion on this because I don't believe we can move forward on this without the certification. So Commissioner Elaine has comments. Do you have more, Mr. Hirschman, before we leave you?
Well, thank you.
I would make that part of the motion.
When I've looked at story poles in the past, there was a string that was tied around the corners of the building. So that gave us a clearer and they were flagged. There were little flags on them. And that gave us a clearer understanding of the mass. I went out there a couple of days ago, or was it yesterday? And it was a couple of days ago. It was really, well, first of all, one of the poles was knocked over. And one of the poles, the one furthest east, looked like it was way out of whack from where other poles said the corner of the building. Didn't line up at all. So for clarity, I'd like to see a string run around there, because that's what's been done in the past, and that's what I was expecting, and it really gives it a much clearer view of the mass of it.
And you did request it at our last meeting, and it wasn't done. It was part of our request. Commissioner Elaine, you have comments on this?
Yes, I'd like to offer a friendly amendment. If the renderings are going to be revised, I'm confused by what I'm looking at 310. I believe that the wall condition has been changed to be piers, and I think that makes a very significant visual difference to what we are looking at on the renderings, and I'm wondering if renderings can be revised to reflect piers rather than walls.
At the same time, I would accept that. The other amendment is that both projects are conditioned to reduce the height by 1 foot. And I don't believe the renderings show that.
Yes, I think that all of that would be beneficial to allow us and the neighbors as well to picture what it actually is being proposed. And I'd also like to thank the neighbors or whoever it was who alerted us to the fact that there was a concern regarding the location of the story poles and the accuracy thereof, because I did not pick that up visually, other than that one at the east end does look a little bit out of whack.
Well, I just want to say that story poles can be deceiving. They may be perfectly accurate. That's the entire point of certification, so that we know that they're accurate to the drawings that we've been presented. and that will tell the whole story. Until they're correct, they can't be certified.
So we have a motion in front of us. Mr. Newell, could you read it back to us?
Yes, so the motion is to continue to a date certain of your next meeting, which is January 26th. And you'd like the story poles to be certified. You would like you'd like the string tied from pole to pole to depict the building massing. You'd like the renderings to be revised to show the design of the rear of the residence with the piers as well as the height reduction.
Correct. Does anybody else have anything else in this motion? Can we call the roll, please?
Who's the second on this motion?
Commissioner, Vice Chair Roberts.
I didn't make the motion, but I'm fine to do that.
Oh, you made the motion. I'm the second. Sorry. He is the maker of the motion.
Vice Chair Roberts?
Yes.
Chairwoman?
Yes.
Commissioner Lehan?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Hirschbein?
Yes.
And Commissioner Maruzzi?
Yes.
Motion is approved 6-0.
Moving to 3B, Hawkins and Marshall on behalf of Carmelita Properties Limited for a major architectural and administrative minor modification application to construct a two-story, 3,291 square foot single-family residence with a maximum building height of 25.8 feet on an 11,206 square foot hillside parcel located at 322 West Crestview Drive. Coming to the same question, am I correct that the story poles on this have not been certified? Staff?
That's correct, Madam Chair.
Mr. Roberts, would you like to make the same motion on this?
Sure. I mean, my only concern at this point is for certification of the story poles. Others might have other requests for rendering adjustments and so forth.
Then I will make the motion, make it identical to the other motion, which is renderings showing piers and the string. Do I have a second?
I don't believe that the piers applies to the 322 property.
Staff, can you confirm that? I thought it did.
At the last ARC meeting, the plans are reviewed by the ARC on August 30th, which the committee recommended approval subject to conditions, depicted piers for both projects.
But yes, it is in the conditions.
And I reviewed the conditions, and the height is also reducing the height by 1 foot is also in the conditions. So the story poles should also reflect that in the drawings as well.
Madam Chair, the 1 foot reduction, was that a condition imposed by us or by the AAC?
My understanding, it was the AAC. Noriko, can you?
The recommended condition was included just so that it's consistent with what the ARC reviewed on August 30th. And based on the plans that are submitted for the Planning Commission review, the vertical height of the lower portion of the residence was actually a foot longer compared to what the
And just Just to be clear, the condition is to explore the use of piers, but if the piers are not feasible based on the lowering of the structure, then the piers might not be part of the design.
So, Mr. Newell, what I understand you suggesting then is that the applicant will bring back one foundation or the other for this? And so what we see at the next meeting will be whatever they've landed on? Pun intended. Okay. I want to just voice for the record that I would prefer to see piers rather than walls. I think it will reduce the impact and mass of these houses on the hillside. It will also allow undergrowth, which will also reduce the impact and mass of these houses.
As the maker of the motion, I would prefer to see piers as well. I actually would also like to see their landscape plan, even though that will eventually go back to the architectural review committee. I would like to see it for both houses. Do I have a second for the motion that I've made?
We have the motion read back.
Oh, the motion went back to Commissioner Roth.
Could we have it read back? It sounds like a couple things have been added since the last motion.
Yeah, it's staff has it written down as being essentially the same motion. The difference is that instead of showing the piers as which is required for 310, the other house, the preference is to have piers in this design as well, if that is determined to be feasible. And then also that the landscape plan would be reviewed by the Planning Commission at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Is that landscape request just for that one or both?
Can we can't go backward for the other one, can we, Mr. Priest? And request modify the last motion and request the landscape plan?
Somebody can request a motion for reconsideration of that item. And if you guys agree to reconsider it, you can reopen that item and add that condition or standard if you'd like.
Let's take this one first, and then we'll see if anyone would like to reopen it. Mr. Roberts, were you a second on this motion or not?
I don't recall. I know, staff, can you let us know who the maker was and who second?
We have the maker's Chair Wermack, and I believe she was looking for the second, unless Mr. Roberts seconded the motion. And
I'm fine to second the motion.
Can we take a roll call on this?
Chair Wermack,
Yes.
Vice Chair Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Land,
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin,
Yes.
Commissioner Hirschbein,
Yes.
Commissioner Maruzzi.
Yes.
Motion is approved 6-0.
And can I recall the motion on 3A, which is 310 West Crestview, to add the landscape plan? Would there be a second on that?
I will second the motion to reconsider the vote on the item.
Thank you. How do we do this, Mr. Priest? We have a motion to reconsider the vote.
You have a motion and a second to reconsider the item. So I would ask Ms. Hintz to take a roll call vote of the commission. If a majority of you agree to reopen the item and reconsider it, then you can reopen that item and make any amendments you'd like to, and then do a new motion to confirm that direction.
Can you take a roll call vote, please?
So the first is Chair Wermack, second is Commissioner Land.
Yes.
And yes.
Okay. Chair Wermack,
Yes.
Commissioner Land,
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin,
Yes.
Commissioner Hirschbein,
Yes.
Commissioner Rosie,
Yes.
Vice Chair Roberts.
Yes.
Motion to reconsider is approved 6-0.
And then I would like to make the same motion, but add providing us with the landscape plan as well as the other items, if staff could read back the other items.
So the other items are to certify the story poles, provide certification of the story poles, provide a string tied from pole to pole to further show the massing of the project. Regarding the renderings, to show piers on the project for, revise the rendering to show the piers at the rear of the residence, and then reduce the overall height by 1 foot as required by the conditions. And so the additional condition now would be to add a review of the landscape plan at your next meeting.
Is there anyone who would like to make that motion? Commissioner Hirschbein. Do we have a second?
I will second.
Can you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Hirschbein,
Yes.
Commissioner Lehan,
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin,
Yes.
Commissioner Maruzzi,
Yes.
Vice Chair Roberts,
Yes.
Chairwoman.
Yes.
Approved 6-0.
Thank you. Our next item is Avalon 1150 LLC for the approval of final development plans for 130 single-family residential units on a 50-foot wide lots within the Phase 2 section of the Miralon development located at 801 Sunrise Parkway. A very short staff report, please.
Yeah, Madam Chair, may I share my screen real quick?
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Madam Chair, can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the Planning Commission. And as has been read into the record, this is an application for final development plans, and the applicant is Avalon 1150 LLC. So the scope of review is for the Planning Commission to review the final development plans to see if it is in conformance or if it is substantially in conformance to the preliminary PDD that was previously approved relative to land use and development standards. So normally the Architectural Review Committee will review the detailed architecture, the landscape designs, the colors and materials. So these final PD include 5 different plans designated as Plan 1, Plan 2, Plan 3, Plan 4, and Plan 5. Each of the floor plans, there are 2 different floor plans, with each of them having 2 elevation types designated as Elevation A and Elevation B. In terms of the mass and scale, Plans 1, 2, and 3 are all single stories, and Plans 4 and 5 are 2-story buildings. These buildings will range from 2303 square foot to 2,794 square foot in size. So briefly, on the bottom, you have the 5 different floor plans. That's Plan 1A, 2B, Plan 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, at the top, you see the 2 elevation types, Plan 1A with color scheme 1, and then plan 1B, followed by 2A, 2B, 3A, 3B, 4A, and 4B, and finally 5A and 5B.
Edward, can you make the screen, the image and the whole screen? Right now it's split between the next slide and the current slide.
Okay.
I think you started off with it the right way and then you switched it.
What about now?
There you go.
Okay. All right. So, okay. So the next slide. So the next slide is just the aerial of the site and its vicinity. So at the very top here, it's Miralon project. And then the next slide is the overall site plan. Just real quick. To the very south are the final PDs that you previously reviewed and actually under construction. So to the east, you have Woodbridge Homes. You have approved 44 lots there. And then to the top of that, you have Gallery Homes. You approved 70 homes. And then to the very south, Christopher Homes, where you approved 70 homes. And then again, there is the Gallery Home. This is the very first set that you approved. Those are also under construction. And then on the very top, area 4B, that's the very first final PD you approved for Miralon. And this area, which is to the southeast portion of the site, is where Avalon is proposing the 130 lots. Again, this shows specifically where the 1100, this is phase 2. So this whole area where you previously approved final PDs are all phase 1. This is phase 2 where Avalon is proposing the 130 lots. And specifically, these are the lots. They are all in conformance with the development standards, the setbacks, and then heights. Those are all in conformance. And these are the floor plans. I'm going to abbreviate this since you already have materials that contains all the floor plans and the elevation. So, Madam Chair, I would like to end my report. If there's any question for staff, I'm available. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There have been some questions raised that regarding the conformance of the homes that are presented to us with the design guidelines. And because of that, what I'd like to do is take people's comments on this and then set up a subcommittee that will work with 2 members probably of the AAC and our new urban designer and Edward to work through the conformity issues, both of the placement of the homes, the massing of the homes, and also the conformance to the design guidelines. So we aren't going to be voting on this tonight. What I would like are your comments. And this is not a public hearing item, so this is before the commission for comment.
Can Edward take his slide off the screen so we can see each other?
Absolutely. So on share.
And for people to know that we have a new urban designer, but when this came in and also with staff shortages, this hasn't gone through that process. And so we're looking at a process fairly close to what we went through for the other Miralon homes to review conformity with guidelines. Commissioner Hirschbein.
Thank you. Yeah, it's interesting you said that about conformity to guidelines, because that was exactly my concern. And thank you, staff, for including the guideline booklet again, because it's always good to refer back to it. And as I flipped through, starting on page 23 and going through the images that were presented to us as guiding the designs of future houses, I just didn't see the relationship between what was presented to us as the design inspiration and then the final product. And I was going to ask the developer, I don't guess we don't need to do this tonight, to point to where their house conforms to the image, because it doesn't. And I'd be very, very interested in seeing it, that it does conform to the guidelines in a more architecturally robust way. Because I'm going to be a little frank here. The designs are kind of clunky, and they're awkward, and they don't really speak to a modern vocabulary like the design guidelines lead us to believe they will. And I think it needs to be more in conformity to those. And I'd like to address the issue of cost, because that was brought up way back. I've noticed that some of these Miralon houses are now selling for over $1 million, which to me indicates it's no longer sort of middle class housing, or whatever you want to call it in terms of demographic, but it's a higher level. And that requires, in my mind, a higher level of design as well. And that's what I'll be looking for when they come back to us.
Commissioner Marucci?
I'd just like to ask staff, was this reviewed for conformity?
Yes, it was reviewed for conformity, but then we were waiting to take it to the ARC, where the architecture and colors and materials will be reviewed in more detail. So the intent was to present the overall land use proposed, and then the development standards. And since there were no requests to make any amendments to the design guidelines and the landscape guidelines, staff believe that it was appropriate to present it to the Planning Commission and then move forward to the ARC, where the architecture and the landscape design will be reviewed in more details.
I don't understand when it said there was no request. Who would have requested the more detailed conformance review?
No, so for instance, if the applicant was requesting for a relief in any of the development standards, such as the setbacks or the height or materials different than what is required in the design guidelines, the Planning Commission would be the one to make that decision.
I don't really understand that, but
okay. So,
Chair Wormuth, can you explain, or maybe someone in staff? So it goes to the ARC now. So are we not supposed to comment on conformance with the?
That's what you are. I'm sorry. That's what you are doing tonight. So it was supposed.
Obviously, we're not, since we don't have the information. Right? Isn't that the reason you're setting up a subcommittee, Chair Wormuth?
Setting up a subcommittee because the designs we received are so far away from what the intent was of the design guidelines that I think it would be good to work with the applicant, and we did on the other Miralon projects. We would have before us generally looking at this and comment, but it's not close to a point where we could comment to AAC and expect it to come back. There would also, from my point of view, the roof lines are so scattered. I've seen other projects with roof lines like this, and if you push them together the way these projects are pushed together, they don't create a harmonious streetscape. We didn't receive streetscapes. We didn't receive, we would normally look at what the whole street looked like. We would look at what the golf course face of the project looked like. We would be looking at the side yards as well. This seemed very, very far away from the design guidelines. And this didn't have the kind of review we anticipated it would have when we changed this process, which is the urban designer position doing a thorough review before it came to us. So what I would like is a process. I've talked this through with staff and with the planner, and there's a process that we can do. But my feeling on it, when I looked at it as chair, and I always review things, is that we need more. And one of the ways of getting there is to sit down and meet with the architect involved and work this through so that we get something that's close to the inspiration of the design guidelines.
I guess what I would wonder is, and maybe I'd like to hear from the architects, is why do the designs that were presented to us, why do they differ so greatly from the design guidelines?
This isn't a public hearing at this point, so
They're not really asked, they can't respond. I see this Robert Hiddy architects, aren't those the architects? Or are they just from another planet? I mean, why are they here?
They are the architects.
Is it appropriate to ask them why it differs so greatly?
Let's first go through comments and then we can do that. Vice Chair Roberts has had his hand up for a long time.
Thank you. My virtual hand is very tired. So I very much concur with the comments that I'm hearing about these aesthetically, especially Commissioner Hirschbein made some good points. I agree that the architecture is disappointing. It's clumsy at best. We need something more cohesive. We need better shapes that relate well to each other. Frankly, and being blunt, these look like a house of cards and they look like they're falling down. And we need some variation in color, texture, better roof lines, better scale. The two-story units in particular, I'm looking at Plan 4B right now. We can do better. We can do a lot better. And, you know, good design isn't really any more expensive than bad design. It just takes effort. And, you know, and I get that this is, you know, developer product, but as Commissioner Hirschbein pointed out, you know, this isn't affordable housing anymore. This is, you know, this is a development that hopefully prides itself on the quality of what they're developing. These aren't anywhere as attractive or well-designed as the initial houses in this development. So I'm addressing my comments to whoever the subcommittee is. Yeah, these need a lot of work.
Are there other comments from other commissioners? Commissioner Elaine, do you have comments?
I do. My comments, I share many of the concerns that I've heard go already. I'm not an architect. I'm not here to criticize architecture. But even I could notice that what was promised in the design guides was not delivered in the package we had. So I couldn't agree that it meets the that it conforms with the preliminary guidelines. There are things that were very different, particularly the side elevations are just wholly lacking. What I will say though, and one area where I think I might differ from the opinion of a couple of the commissioners heard, is that I'm not advocating for making sure that this is elevated to a truly fine and $1 million neighborhood. I think that I'd love to see homes that were affordable. I don't think that conforming architecture needs to be expensive architecture or expensive to build. I think that if there are ways to make the designs conform with what was presented in the preliminary and in the design guidelines that was already approved, if there's ways to do that and keep it at an affordable level, I would prefer to do that rather than elevate the price point so that we continue to build unaffordable housing.
The price point, I think, was elevated by the sellers It came to us as a $500,000 neighborhood, and it is selling in the $1 million range. Commissioner Maruzzi, you still have your hand up.
Oh, what did you say? What was it originally presented to us as in terms of?
It was presented to us as houses coming in at 500,000, and then houses that I believe were going to come in at 700,000. They're coming in much higher than that.
Because of the market, I suppose.
Well, the market.
The question I'm sorry.
So when we originally did the design guidelines, we weren't asking for expensive material, but good design. And
I think that's possible. And I would love whoever's on the subcommittee, especially if it's working with the Architectural Review Committee, to be able to help the developer work towards that.
My memory of the original committee, before we go there, and maybe Mr. Robertson can help us, is it was myself, it was Commissioner Hudson, it was Commissioner Lockyer from AAC, and there was one person.
That was Robert Rotman and Chair Jackway.
And was Commissioner Hirschbein on that? I don't remember.
Yes, he was.
So one of the thoughts I had is that the committee we would appoint would keep, if we could, the same members, adding one more person from this committee who might want to be on it. And work with the person who's recently been hired as chief planner, or the chief urban planner. Is that their correct title, Flynn?
Close enough.
Close enough, okay. And bring them into the mix. One of the other things that's happened with this is that some of the materials in houses that have been built have not met the standard for the environment that they're in. And so I think that's something we would probably also want to look at and make sure that when this passes to the AAC, that they take a look at it. This is a PD, so we didn't have a clear standard, Flynn. I thought PDs were going to be reviewed in some joint fashion eventually by ourselves in AAC.
We would need to amend the zoning code in order to do that.
So didn't we have a separate process for situations like this?
We don't have a process codified, so we would need to do that. We do have an opportunity with the upcoming annual update to the zoning code.
So what my suggestion is we do some meetings on this, and then it come back to us, and then it go to the Architectural Review Committee for final with recommendations. And that we include, this meeting would include the architects. Commissioner Maruzzi, did you still have questions?
Just ultimately what I was thinking is, maybe with this new urban design person, it would have been caught before it came to us. I just think we're spending time talking about this. If someone along in staff would have been able to identify and say, this is not even close to any of the original guidelines that were passed, so why is it coming to us? It should have been sent back to the architects. But maybe this new person will catch these sorts of things and before it comes to us, so we don't have to spend time talking about it, just to send it back.
Right, that's partially why we're having this discussion tonight, because my first suggestion as chair was that we do that. But I did want to hear the concerns of the commission, and I thought setting up the same process with the same subcommittee, we'll have other things coming in the future from Miralon, so that our new urban design person can then begin to take that on.
Good.
So that's partially why we're having the discussion we're having. I'm wondering, we need one more person for this. The person preferably should be an architect or designer. I'm wondering if the vice chair would like to join us on this subcommittee.
Sorry, I was muted. You know, I was on the last two. I'd like to give my colleagues a chance to do this unless nobody wants to do it.
Commissioner Hirschbein is going to do it, and I am going to do it because I'm going to duplicate our original committee for this purpose, for fairness to the applicant and the architects as well. But given that Commissioner Hudson is no longer with us, we need a substitute for Commissioner Hudson.
Go ahead, Vice Chair Roberts.
Well, Commissioner Lane or Maruzzi, you have no interest in working on this?
I don't believe that I have the qualifications you're looking for that would be appropriate for this subcommittee.
Actually, I would be interested in doing it.
Yeah, I'd suggest Commissioner Maruzzi have a shot. These subcommittees are interesting and they help us mold, you know, they help us mold policy in the future. So again, if Commissioner Maruzzi wants to do it, please.
Yes, I would.
So the motion that's before us is that we continue this to a date uncertain. We set up a subcommittee consisting of myself, Commissioner Hirschbein, and Commissioner Maruzzi, asking the same members, Commissioner Rotman and Chair Jakeway, to join us and work with the applicant and our design, and that will be Mr. Lyon on staff, work together to mold and review plans for this portion of Miralon.
Madam Chair, we might have a Brown Act violation with 3 members of the Planning Commission. Flynn, can you make a call on that?
3 members of the Planning Commission is appropriate.
Okay.
So we won't be violating the Brown Act.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hirschbein.
Well, can I make that? Did you make the motion or can I make?
Go ahead and make it. That's fine.
Madam Chair, before the motion, may I ask a quick question?
Yes.
How about a landscape architect from the ARC? Do you want to add one?
Oh, I'd like to add Robert Rothman and Chair Jakeway if we can.
I believe those 2 are architects. I think we only have one landscape architect on the ARC. That's Mr. Tom Dose, I believe.
We can add, we have 2 actually, I believe. We have the person who does lighting as well as landscape.
Okay.
But we can add, I mean, it's fine to add a 3rd person if we need to.
Okay, great. Thanks.
It's more of an architectural exercise.
Yeah, I think it's more architectural at this point.
I don't know that, I mean, I think the landscape can get covered eventually.
I agree.
Thank you.
Chair, I just like to address the architects. I think they're probably still listening. And I'd strongly recommend looking at the inspiration pictures that were provided to us in the design guideline booklet and model their architectural elevations, roof lines, treatments of windows and fenestration, privacy screens, all of it on what's been presented to us already as the inspiration, and try to get more of a one-to-one correspondence. And I don't know if in the past we met with the architectural team from Miralon before they did any revisions, and then they came back and showed us the revisions. I don't know if we need to do that this time. I think from my point of view, based on what the comments from the commission have been tonight, we're pretty clear on where they need to change. And so I would be looking for the next or the subcommittee meeting to look at revised elevations, sections, renderings.
The other thing is I would look at the 50-foot wide easement abutting rear yard and look at Plan 3 and also give a very strong thought to a shared use easement arrangement so that there can be adequate use of the side yard as opposed to dividing it 5 feet by 5 feet.
Yeah, I agree with that.
They're really good models with Toll Brothers where they've done that. They've created beautiful side yards on 5,000 square foot lots. And it won't be as chunky as this is. Also look at the plans that have been developed and the use of front swimming pools on the lots that don't have the easement on the golf course to capture views, because I believe from this section, the views of the mountains are really nice. And homeowners would be interested in accessing those when they're in their pools. So those things I think people should take a really clear look at on the guidelines. None of the homes matched what is the plans with the cutouts that allowed for more side yard space. So I have a motion by Commissioner Hirschbein. Do I have a second from anyone else?
I'll second.
So I have a second with Commissioner Marucci. Can you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Hirschbein,
Yes.
Commissioner Malusi,
Yes.
Commissioner Elayan,
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin,
Yes.
Vice Chair Roberts,
Yes.
Chairwoman.
Yes.
It is approved 6-0.
Okay, we're moving right along, and it is 10 of 7 with the goal of possibly ending at 7 o'clock. Planning Commission reports, requests, and comments.
I have one question for the director. Have there been any SB9 submittals to date to Planning Commission?
No, there have not been. They would not come to Planning Commission. They are approved at a staff level.
Staff meaning the building department?
And staff meeting planning and building.
Well, that's my question. Have you seen any?
No, we have not.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other Planning Commission reports, requests, or comments?
I have a question just for staff. I wonder if we can get an update. Part of this is crystal ball, or most of this is crystal ball, I understand. But I'm particularly interested in the months of March and April, and if we have any idea if we're going to be meeting live then, or if we'll still be able to participate via Zoom.
As of right now, there hasn't been discussion of going back to in-person meetings because of the latest COVID surge. So unfortunately, until we see numbers start crawling back down, I think we'll plan on continuing the virtual format.
So hypothetically speaking, if one of the commissioners were to say be scheduled to ride her bike across the country, she would be able to, or he or she would be able to participate via Zoom, download the documents and participate via Zoom in March. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, correct.
I happen to be in Reno.
I didn't know.
How exciting. What wonderful plans. Okay. The Planning Director's report. I think Flynn is still going to do this, but Flynn, will you talk about your new title?
Yes, I will. So I'll be stepping into a new role here with the City of Palm Springs, that of Deputy City Manager. I will be transitioning away from my role as Development Services Director over the next month or two. In the transition period, Mr. Newell, as Assistant Director, will continue to staff and lead Planning Commission, ARC, and HSPB meetings. We don't really have any additional information in terms of organizational changes at this point, but in my role, I will continue to supervise planning, building, engineering, sustainability, and will also add economic development. So it's an exciting change for me, and appreciate the time that I've been able to serve with you all as planning commissioners. And so with that, begins a new era.
Oh my, when will this happen? Will it happen by our next meeting?
Possibly. I will not be in attendance at the next meeting due to the fact that I will be out of town, but it is expected to transition over the next couple of weeks.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, Flynn.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congrats. I had a question. It was mentioned something about our urban planner, our new urban planner. Will we be able to meet them? Or, you know, will they be introduced to us?
You may actually already know him, Mr. Ken Lyon, who has been serving as our historic preservation officer, was promoted to a principal planner with the specific role of being our urban designer. And so I think Ken has been at Planning Commission meetings in the past, and you'll start to see him more frequently in the future.
Has anyone been hired for Ken's position?
They have not. We have had the position open and advertised, and we're happy to report that we have, David, 4 candidates that we will be considering here in the next couple of weeks, interviewing, and hope to extend an offer to one of those candidates in the near future.
Thank you.
That's very exciting. Well, with that, is there anything else in the way of reports, Flynn or David?
I don't have anything, Mr. Newell.
Then I move that we adjourn until 5:30 on January 26th. Meeting is adjourned.
Bye, everybody. Good night.
Night.
Bye.
5:07, that's a record.